Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Move Ahead with Dalia. I'm your host, Dalia Cahigas. And on today's show, I have Jason Estremera, the Executive Director of Northwest Side's Community Development Corporation, the CDC. Hi, Jason.
Hey, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for having me here today.
Yes, thank you. I'm super excited to have you here to talk about small businesses, to talk about affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's begin by talking about what is the Northwest Side Community Development Corporation and how long has it been around?
Great. Good question. So the Northwest Side CDC was formed out of a large community convening that the Northwest Side Housing Center brought together
Okay.
to really just get a better understanding of the changing and evolving needs of the Belmont Cragin community. And so that really resulted in understanding that small businesses, renters, landlords, and just general neighborhood-based placekeeping were needs that the community felt were unmet. And so as a result of that work, it was in the fall of 2018 that the Northwest Side CDC was actually established. And again, to that end, our focus today is are those three areas: providing one-on-one training and advising or group-based training to folks who are looking to start or grow a business. We also, underneath sort of that umbrella, we have our business incubator program, which I know we'll be chatting about in a little bit, but that's just an extension of some of the work that we do to really provide services to small businesses. Our rental and our landlord work is, again, another place where we do that one-on-one advising and group-based training to really help folks understand, you have a lot of people who own homes now and their kids are finally moving out, right? They're just excited, but they need to make a little extra income, before maybe their son or their daughter or whoever was paying rent to live in the basement or in the back room, whatever the case is. But you have a lot of folks who will just go online and just copy and paste a rental agreement. And if there's a big risk there of discrimination, right? And not having the right verbiage on there. And so we'll find those and we'll help people actually make proper ones so they don't get, in trouble. It's a very big mistake to have discriminatory language in your listings. And then lastly, our placekeeping work is our bigger, probably most well-known work is really around bringing the community together through unique events in the neighborhood. We have Mercado en la Noche, which is a night market. You've been there. We had the paleta cart, right?
Yes, that was fun.
That was really, really fun. And you were there for the first one because we activated. It was a first for parking. A lot.
And you had a great turnout.
We did. I did not. That was like a shot in the dark. There was some funding, and we're like,
just build it, and they will come.
And guess what? The community came out, right? They were dancing. They enjoyed paletas. They shopped small vendors, right? And so that falls under that area. We also have Dia de Niño that we do every year. And then a lot of advocacy work around zoning laws and regulations, micromobility work, trying to put in bike paths in our neighborhood, bringing divvy bikes to the neighborhood. So really, those are the three programmatic areas that we focus on as the Northwest Side CDC.
Yeah, and that's a lot. And I had James Rudick here, the executive director of Northwest Side, a few weeks ago.
Sure did.
He talked in a broader sense of what Northwest Side does, in Belmont Cragin. And when he touched a little bit on the CDC programs, I knew I had to have you on because, of course, about the small businesses, so very important to the community. But also because I wanted to get into a little bit deeper information for our listeners on what all those things are. So before we get into that, I did want to ask you if you could share, how did you get to become executive director of the CDC? How did you get to Northwest Side?
Yeah. So I have this interesting story. I was born in Cleveland, but raised here in the city in Chicago. And my history is in corporate. I was working for JP Morgan Chase for quite some time. And when I was in my undergrad and getting ready to actually start with Chase, my family said, hey, you know what? Our parents are getting older. We want to move back to Cleveland to take care of our parents as they age, but also like, it had been so long that they've been living here away from their family that they just thought it was a time to return. And so they were like, what do you think about that? And I was like, I think I'm going to enjoy living here, and I'll come visit you Thanksgiving and Christmas, right? So I stayed here and I worked for JP Morgan. And after we bought out Washington Mutual, I spent a year just going across the US, helping do some of that branch conversion. And at the end of it all, there were a couple markets that opened up for folks to transfer who had been part of that process. And one of the markets happened to be Cleveland. And I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, but like sometimes we ignore those little like nudges, those little things that whoever is out there is saying to us.
The little signs.
Yes. So I was like, maybe I should just follow this, right? And see what happens. And so I went to Cleveland and I immediately enrolled in a master's, my MBA program at Cleveland State University. And I was still working for Chase. And you're doing your daytime job, then you go to night school, and it's pretty exhausting, but it's a lot of like textbook principles that you're learning in your MBA program. And I was just like, how do I find a way to apply this in real life a little bit more expeditiously than just like learning about it and then testing it and then in the future working on those things. I soon realized that our bankers at Chase were telling the same people yes and the same people no when it came to access to financial products and resources. And it really irked me. It was a very obvious, demonstrable sort of like who was getting those responses. So I went out and just made my own personal business cards. And I came back and I told the bankers, when you say no to somebody, I want you to give them my business card. And I will then meet with folks whenever I can fit them into my schedule. And trust me, it was like mornings, it was like lunchtime, after work, weekends, to help folks get a better understanding of like, why was that a no from a traditional lender? Was it because you lacked financial performance? Is it because you don't have a credit score? Whatever the case is, but also really to say like, there's resources out there that you should be utilizing. So I'll help you with this, but then I'll refer you over to an agency that can probably take you a little further.
Good.
A nonprofit in the area was like, hey, you keep giving us these amazing referrals and we keep getting these business owners over here. Who are you? What are you? By the way, we're also hiring an associate director. What are your thoughts? And being raised in the corporate sector, right? And especially JP Morgan Chase, hearing the term not for profit and me being employed by one, I didn't really understand what that meant, right? And so a little nervous about joining it, but then had learned a lot more about that field. So I did the associate director role for an organization in Cleveland called the Hispanic Business Center that very much looks like the Belmont Cragin community in terms of demographic makeup. Yeah. I was there as associate director for about 10 years, and I was finishing a fellowship that I did with the National Association of Latino Community Asset Builders, NALCAB for short. And when I wrapped up that fellowship, I was like, I'm kind of like yearning to go back to Chicago. It's been a really long time. I miss the hustle and bustle. Yes, right? Life's nudges, right?
Yes.
So I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and see about sort of like leaving the family and going back to Chicago. So I came here and I reconnected with a colleague, James, who I actually knew from Cleveland.
Oh, yes. I was going to say, I know James is from Cleveland.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We have an interesting way that we met.
Awesome.
Just he was in not-for-profit. I was with Chase, and he was with an organization that was actively like doing actions against Chase. So it was this funny way that we met, but we became really good friends. And so I reached out and I asked him like, hey, I have a really robust friend circle in Chicago because that's where, I grew up, but I don't have a professional network and I'm not really sure what's going on, but this is my experience and I'm looking for an executive director role. At that time, the CDC had been around for, just about a year. And the individual that stepped up to the ED role, it just wasn't a shoe that fit the way that it needed to. He was an amazing organizer and he had so many great connections, but Julio is an organizer, and that's really where his heart was. And so he felt that he needed to step away to be able to go back to the things that meant a lot to him. So as soon as I had called James, he was like, oh, actually, we're launching interviews for this position.
What are the chances?
And my first day in office was the first day of the stay-at-home order during the pandemic. So
no.
Interesting journey. Yeah. I met everybody by little boxes on my computer screen for at least a good, 6 or 7 months until we could actually meet in person.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Julio. Julio was the first person I met at Northwest Side.
Wow.
Back over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing guy.
He is. And he's doing some really big things. So
is he?
Some big shoes to fill. Trust me.
I follow him on Instagram. So I do see you, Julio.
Hey, Julio, if you're watching.
Yeah, he is. He's wonderful.
Yes, he is super great.
Well, I'm so glad that you are part of the CDC at Northwest Side, because I have seen a lot of things going on there that really have impacted the community. Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I know that the staff there has your back. They're wonderful. They
are incredible people. I could do none of this work without them. Every single person on the team is a rock star. And, it means a lot when the folks on your team are actually from the neighborhood you serve. Mm-hmm. That's a different investment into the kind of services that we provide our constituencies, right? When people know that oh, you live a block away from me, right? Or I know you because you go to church with me or whatever. When we're working with folks, small businesses, right? And particularly small businesses in Black and Brown communities, there's a lot of trust building that we have to have, right? Yes. A lot of the folks that we work with are undocumented or Spanish monolingual. People have different experiences with banking and government. Mm-hmm. And so, having folks like Jessica and Maria, Fabian, who are from the neighborhood, who have very similar backgrounds to the folks that we're helping, is just crucial to the work that we do, again, so that folks feel comfortable saying, hey, this is my situation. Maybe this is why my credit score isn't where it is, or maybe this is why, I've been sort of operating under the radar. And then we can find ways to help them. Yeah.
And helping you do. There's a lot going on at Belmont Cragin. Maria keeps the tabs on what's going on. I check in with her all the time.
She's got all the good scoops of what's going on in the neighborhood.
No, really. She does stay on top of it. And like I said, when I catch up with her, she tells me all about the things that you guys are doing. So I did want to touch on, of course, the small business programs.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit more in depth about the incubator space and how people, from the idea of I want to start a small business to actually getting either a space there at the incubator space or in a commercial space. How does the CDC guide them?
Yeah, so I think first we'll start with just an overview of some of those programs.
Okay.
Then we'll go into the incubator space, and then we'll talk about how folks can be engaged with that. So under the small business advising umbrella of the organization, again, one of those services is just that one-on-one advising that folks have, or group-based training. And then the other programmatic elements are Crecer, which is the incubator program. We have Juntos Cocinamos, which is a food business-based training program. It's a 6-week program that we partner with Food Hero to support, whether it's a food cart vendor or a traditional sort of brick and mortar restaurant, to be part of a cohort that learns how to scale and how am I pricing things appropriately and all that good stuff that a lot of our Latinos, we know how to make really great food, and we sort of hustle on Facebook or, very untraditional channels. But how did you come up with your pricing, right? We know you can make amazing food, but are you actually making money on it?
Right.
Are you actually doing it properly?
We're kind of too giving. Give away the food.
Yes. Well, right. I know in Puerto Rico, when I go and visit family, right, folks will just put a table on the side of the road and put a sign in front that says open for business, right? Mm-hmm. And that's fairly a legitimate business over on the island, right?
Yes.
Here you do that and it's no. You're going to get in trouble, right? Mm-hmm. So we really want to sort of help folks understand what that looks like. And so those are 2 programs. And then a third one is our Businesses Achieving Wealth program. And in this program, we're actually working with folks who want to buy the storefront that they've been operating in.
Oh.
Or if it's not that space, maybe it's another one.
Okay.
And so we just help folks navigate the legal logistics of that, or finding a new space, getting access to capital, all of that good stuff. And so those are those big 3 programmatic areas. Our incubator program, Crecer, started 3 years ago. Again, one of those toss spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks moments, of this idea that through the pandemic, businesses were finding it very hard to connect with shoppers, right? A lot of folks found success online, but not everyone has that same relationship with technology. And by and large, our folks here in Belmont Cragin didn't have the same sort of digital literacy as a lot of other folks that had out there, right? And so there's that. There was also the challenge with finding legitimate landlords who are offering up safe, clean spaces for folks to move into. And so we thought, why don't we navigate some of that, some of that tumultuous territory of like, we'll make the relationships with landlords and we'll figure out the lease agreements. And if we hold the master lease, but then sublease these to other folks, but then subsidize it and say, I'll go to a foundation and ask for funding that'll basically cover this entire program, and then bring folks in and allow for them to have a really good runway to launch their business or grow their business in a very safe environment. And so with Crecer, this iteration of it, this would be our 3rd year of the program. We took over a coffee shop that just wasn't fitting in with the neighborhood. We'll be honest, right? I think it just didn't work, and the business owner wasn't really welcoming of like youth in their space, and 30% of like 80,000 people in Belmont Cragin are 18 years and younger, right? And we believe that every single person, we take an intergenerational approach to the work that we do. Everyone has value, and the youth especially has such an important value. They're the ones going to be taking us into the future, right?
Right.
So we thought, why don't we find a way to snag up the space, because the coffee shop was going to rethink the way they did business in probably a different neighborhood. And before like a Starbucks took it or a Taco Bell opened up or whatever the case is, we just snatched it up, signed a lease right on the spot, and then decided that we would then put a youth-run coffee shop in it. So that's Cafe Con Cragin. We're going to be having a soft opening in mid-May and a grand opening to be announced. That's top secret, but we'll get that out to you all. And so that's actually be ran by youth from the neighborhood.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So we actually have one employee already.
Oh my gosh. That's
lives
wonderful.
in the neighborhood. Very entrepreneurial in spirit, because I think that's where his family comes from. And they've been in the construction industry for a while, but he loved it, but also was like, I'd love to own a coffee shop and bring youth in and host programming. And so that's really what's going to be happening in the Cafe Con Cragin area. Adjacent to it, we have El Capitan Snacks, and that is a food business, and it's more sort of like cafe style. So you may have some panini sandwiches, agua frescas. They make churro bouquets. So think of like an edible arrangement, but out of churros.
I had one. They were amazing.
And they're so good, right?
I was there about 3 weeks ago with my mom. I went to Crecer, and I had the churro, delicious. And I went to Fascinarte. This is a bracelet I bought. I got my sister some bracelets.
Oh, amazing.
And I went to Dalia, silver and copper, and I got my mom a ring. And these are the earrings from them.
Oh, get out of here. Look at that.
So cool. They're custom jewelry.
Yeah.
And then Fascinarte is all like handmade. And many things come from, I think, Mexico.
Well, she's got an interesting story. She's a survivor of domestic abuse. And she realized or re-realized her worth after coming out of that situation through the arts and being able to make items. And she knew that she had a gift that she could give the world. Aww. When you're in those situations, right, you're traditionally told that you're nothing and made to feel really small. She began to feel big and feel like herself again through the arts. Well, the items that you see in her shop are made by her, but also she works with women coming out of the same situations in Mexico. So there's a specific town that she works with. So on some of the merchandise, you'll see the artist's name and a little background story on their survival of coming out of this horrible situation. So
yeah, they have a lot of adorable custom made, handmade items, things for your kitchen. They have shawls,
blankets, candles.
It's amazing.
Good luck charms.
And it's perfect for like Mother's Day's coming up.
Yeah.
So, gifts or gift yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing business.
And the bookstore.
Yes. And 51st Ward Books is, it's Chicago's first anti-racist bookstore aimed at young children. And it features the stories of Black and brown families.
Yes.
And so you have a lot of these books are Spanish bilingual or Spanish monolingual. Again, they're aged more at young children. And so that's really important because a lot of times we don't see ourselves in children's tales, right?
Yes.
And a lot of these authors are actually from Chicago. And so we also bring in the authors and they do really fun readings and they have these little circles that kids can be on and they can interact with the author. And there's a lot of time like craft component to it. And, it's a really great time. So I think, all these businesses have a really interesting background and they make the space very unique, but they all have an opportunity to have some space to grow. And so where Crecer comes in is we put out an RFP, so request for proposals from community members and businesses. And we say, hey, are you looking to start or grow a business? And we would love for you to be a tenant in our incubator program. And what that looks like is then folks, first and foremost, have to participate in what we call a plan for profit training program that we partner with the Women's Business Development Center. Oh. So every single person has to go through that cohort-based programming. It's free to them.
Good.
So whether or not they actually want to be in the incubator or not, they can still take the program.
That's amazing.
Get a certificate, get those connections right. But it is still like a precursor to being in this program. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that people are serious when they're going into the space.
That's right.
So they have the training program, and at the end of it, they have created a pitch deck. And so then the folks who are actually then going to be in this will pitch. They pitch to the alderman. They pitch to the incubator manager. They pitch to one of the funders from the program. And then they pitch to previous program participants that were in it. Because we don't have everyone leave, right? We keep that relationship. So if someone was a tenant in the space before, we're like, no, come back.
Yes.
Pay it forward. Hear people's pitches.
Yes.
And then we make a decision based on those business pitches, who will be in the space, who's the best fit. Once folks are approved, they get a whole suite of services. So the first 3 months in their time in the space is free. They don't pay any rent. In that time, we also pay for their QuickBooks. So the first year of QuickBooks we pay for. And we also hire a Latina accountant from the neighborhood. And we actually pay her to come in and get their QuickBooks set up. So their chart of accounts, hooking up to their checking accounts.
That's huge. I have QuickBooks and it wasn't easy setting that up.
It most certainly isn't. Again, entrepreneurs, y'all are like, I just want to do the thing that I do really well. Yeah. All this other nonsense gets in the way. And what happens is we just don't do it. And then tax season comes and we're freaking out because, we're looking at receipts from God knows what.
I mean, it's about the foundation, right? You're
Yeah.
building that foundation of understanding the business
Correct.
that you want to grow.
Correct.
So, oh my gosh, that is pretty cool.
Well, again, the goal is we want them to grow out into a vacant space in the neighborhood before some other business comes in, right?
Yes.
A Starbucks, whatever hipster business from, a surrounding neighborhood that they can no longer afford to be there. Coming here, we want to keep the businesses culturally relevant to the folks who are here. And this is a predominantly Latinx neighborhood, right? So we need products and services and businesses that meet those specific needs, right? And so that's what these folks do. So they get the QuickBooks. We actually pay, we'll give folks an iPad because they need that to create their POS system, right? To go ahead and check people out. So we buy the iPads and then we actually hire artists from the neighborhood. So we have a videographer, a photographer, and a social media expert, which arguably is an art. And then we actually contract them out, and they'll work with these businesses and actually take stock photos and videos, but then also teach them, right? Not everyone has access to a nice camera like this one or these kinds of resources. So we'll be like, hey, what do you use? And 9 times out of 10, it's my cell phone or my iPad.
Right.
And so they'll also say, hey, here's some tips and tricks on how to use those so you can get really good imagery for your online. So they'll do all that, but they'll also give them stock photos to use in perpetuity. They'll also make a small video for the business. And then again, the social media expert gives them a social media plan, but also does an analysis. Are you on the regular socials? If I Google you and I pull up your business, does it actually show your storefront, or does it show the alleyway behind the storefront?
Right.
So they get those tools. And then in months 4 through 6, they're paying about 25% of what a full market rate would be for that shared space. And then when we get to month 6 through 12, then they're paying their full actual share of it, which is very, very achievable for a lot of the folks that are in the space.
Well, right, because they're sharing that space.
Correct.
So it's not like they're paying for a full commercial space.
Nope.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's all inclusive, right? So their Wi-Fi, utilities, your overhead, the permits, and a lot of times we get these really cool grants that we can also use to help support them. So it's hey, if you're going to start doing online promotions, we'll actually pay for them, but you give us the receipts, and we have a funder that will pay for you to advertise on social media or on Google. So the goal is, after a year of being in the space, we've worked on your financials, we've worked on your strategic plan, we've worked with your business planning. And then by month 12, we'll have a really good idea of, is your success defined by moving into your own storefront, or is also success defined maybe a storefront isn't for me. And for us, we know a lot of Latinos, we don't go to the bank. We borrow money from friends and family. We cash in on whatever we're selling from our home. Maybe it's our retirement that we use. And that's very risky if your business model doesn't work.
Right.
And so to us, success means that we avoided someone doing all of that because they were in the safe space and we provided you everything you needed. And if it doesn't work out in the trajectory of where maybe some other businesses are going, that's a win. Let us meet you where you're at. But for everyone else, we'll move you into a vacant storefront and then cycle in a new round of folks.
Well, that's incredible support. I didn't realize it was that much.
Wow. Yeah.
That is incredible support.
Yeah.
I mean, a whole 12 months of everything they need to establish the business.
Yep.
And
we plug them in. So the governor came and his whole team toured the space.
Really?
And we spent a morning with them.
Oh,
yeah. The entire office came, and talk about freak out moment for a lot of folks, right? Because they're just the governor's coming. Oh my God. The mayor and her wife came by and had lunch and bought gifts for their family members from the space. All of the aldermanic offices, we've had Una Visiona, we've had a lot of attention on the space. So it's also, when we think about building wealth in our community, it isn't just about the money, which is a very important part. But when we think about wealth, we also want to think about social capital and how does people's accessibility to decision makers or the people out there that put these programs out there should have a real human connection to the benefactors of it, but also to hear from them about what made it a thumbs up or what maybe made it, some room for improvement. So we really just want to make sure to resource the heck out of folks. And it's not just from the monetary perspective. How can we get them connected to people?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know from my experience, because I'm Puerto Rican and I grew up in Chicago, that myself and my family, we love going shopping in small businesses. Yeah. We love seeing different things, especially if they're custom. This is very unique. When I went in, I was so surprised at how unique the space is. So that's incredible.
Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. It ain't easy. Don't get me wrong.
I bet.
Every day is a new twist and churn, but it's so fulfilling. And I think the thing about not for profit, and that resonates with me as executive director, and I think that resonates with the team, is in the corporate sector, you measure your success on a healthy balance sheet or new accounts opened up or whatever it is, and that's really the extent of your success. But in the not-for-profit sector, it's that, but it's also lives changed, right? And the impact that you have in that space. So for me to be rated on like, sure, we're employing people and we've got money and that's good, right? But also people are actually are realizing actual impact in their day-to-day life. And for a lot of our staff, right, they were those people at one point, or they know people still in that space. So there are often moments of gratitude, because I make sure the team reflects on this. We talk about this, that we're in a very fortunate space, and that the community allows us to come in and help them. But we reflect on it and we say to each other, like, it's hard, right? You're dealing with people's livelihoods.
Yes.
You hear heartbreaking stories, but you hear the most incredible stories. And we have to reconcile a lot of those emotions that go into it. But the one thing that everyone finds so gratifying is that, yes, I get a paycheck, but I have a family member that comes to me and says, Jessica, because of this, I got this grant and now I'm able to grow my business, or I don't have to fire people, or I navigated whatever fee I may have incurred and we actually went through it and I can keep my staff. I can keep the business. I can keep the family legacy going. You can't put money on that.
It's priceless.
Yes.
Yeah.
So very, very happy to be doing this work. I'm sure you have the same thing, helping people find their first home, or, moving and growing with their family into a new space, right?
Absolutely.
It's a transaction, but you're also part of their story now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I sometimes just get a call from a family member who is a past client and now their kids want to buy and they're calling me to help them buy a home. And it's just so fulfilling, right? Because we've had that relationship. And that's what this is all about, right? It's about the relationships.
Yeah, entirely.
So let's talk a little bit about, I know that also on the website, there's information about the commercial spaces that are available, right? So do you have that connection with the landlords that tell you what spaces they have, and someone who wants to start a business or is ready to get a space, they can go onto the website and get that. Yeah.
So if anyone's looking for some support, whether you're a landlord or a tenant, a property owner, small business owner, if you're anyone that's just looking to get involved in general, for example, we're doing a neighborhood cleanup event on Saturday over at Reese Park with our corridor ambassadors and our youth program with Northwest Center. There's a million ways to get involved. So you can go to our website. You can look at all the resources. We have a resource hub for renters. We have a resource hub for small businesses. But there's also a contact form if folks want to find a way to get involved, whether it's being a merchant at our night markets, trying to get their foot in the door for the next cohort of this. All the information's on our website, and you can definitely reach us there, and we would love to connect with people. The more the merrier. Yeah. I know someone who actually went in and signed up to meet with Jessica. Good.
Because they're interested in starting a bakery business. So I believe they've already met with her. Hopefully things are moving along with that.
I wouldn't be surprised. If you're watching, I want some of those baked goods. Yes. But yeah, we do have a relationship with landlords. And so I think the other thing we should note is that, a lot of times when folks are looking for a space, they're not reading the fine line. They don't understand it. Or maybe folks are just like, I'm going to give you a handshake agreement, right? None of those are good situations. We've vetted out some folks, and we can definitely refer people. And even if someone is working with someone that's not listed on our website, send us over those documents, and we'll actually reach out to our legal team to take a look at those contracts just to make sure that they're looking out for the best interest of them.
Yeah. So not only am I referring people to the homebuyer workshops that Northwest Center holds monthly. Now I can refer people who are looking to start businesses, or landlords or tenants, renters that are looking for some help as well. So you guys have covered so many parts of the community. It's just out of control.
Yeah. It can feel like it sometimes. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's just incredible, all the work that you're doing, that your staff is doing, that Northwest Side is doing. it's I can't say enough how impactful everything that the staff is doing for Belmont Cragin. It's just amazing.
Thank you.
So
it means
thank
a
you.
lot.
No.
And thank you, Belmont Cragin, for letting us do the work. And I know my peers at Northwest Center would feel the same way, just feeling so incredibly fortunate to do this work, but also we take the trust of the community to be able to come into their neighborhood to do this work very seriously. So
yep, absolutely.
Lots of love.
I do want to touch on one more thing.
Sure.
You did mention a couple of the events coming up. Can we kind of quickly go through some of them so that we make sure that the listeners know what's coming up and hopefully they can attend or volunteer or donate?
Yeah, donate. No, but we're finalizing those dates now. But high level, it'll be June that we do our Dia de Niños event.
Okay.
July will be our Mercado en la Noche.
In July, okay.
In July. And then we have our Gritos event that I think is going to be September.
Okay.
And so those are the top 3 on our list right now that we're working on.
So the website is northwestsidecdc.org.
Sure is.
And you're on Facebook.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Northwest Side CDC. Don't confuse it with the one in Wisconsin. That's not us.
Right. Look up the Chicago one.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we wrap up the podcast?
I don't think so. I just thank you for having me on the show. And I just want everyone to know that whether it's something to do with a small business or if you're a renter, landlord, or a resident at large, whether it's anything we've talked about on the table here or just anything, we tell folks between our organization and our sister organization, the Northwest Center, we're usually like a catch-all for folks as a resource on the Northwest side. So I just encourage anyone to just reach out to us for whatever questions you may have about anything going on in your life. And if it's not something in our wheelhouse, I definitely know we can connect you to someone who can help.
Great. Thank you again, Jason.
Anytime.
It was a pleasure chatting with you about the CDC and all the programs, and continued success.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you all so much for listening today. I hope you found this episode valuable. If you have any questions about today's show or have suggestions for future podcasts, please reach out to me at 773-879-4855. You can find me on all social media platforms, Dalia the Realtor. I would love it if you would subscribe, follow me, and share this episode so we can help the Northwest Side CDC continue to do their work. I appreciate your time. I'll see you at the next episode of Move Ahead with Dalia. Make it a great day. Thank you.